and welcome to the Tech Show. Coming up this week, we've got a duo of dualies, or dual suspensions from Sauer Bikes.
Newness from SRAM.
And there's a 20th anniversary in the industry.
And some really cool clothing from not one brand, but two humongous brands.
Cool. I'll let them be the judge of that.
No, it is officially cool, genuinely, yeah.
So we had the Leogang World Cup, and we've seen more of that flight attendant under Valley Hull, and we've also seen the veil lift slightly more on that Öhlins electronic suspension underneath Loic. And the two of them absolutely dominated, didn't they? Yeah. So the question is electric suspension the future?
Yeah, I mean, I guess we have to talk about future, because mountain biking has had futures for a while, and we can kind of do a brief kind of time warp back to, well, the very first future, which was like a carbon full suspension bike. So Paul Turner, who's famous for other stuff, Keith Bontrager, famous for other stuff. They weren't famous at all at the time, but they collabed to create a Kestrel full suspension mountain bike. And I guess that's where like future started. And that was quite a while ago.
Well, it arguably was the future, because we all are on dualies now.
Exactly, this is true. So I guess mountain biking's had lots of these moments where we thought this is a future. Sometimes it's sort of run out. And the 90s had lots of wild innovation where there was lots of things where we thought, oh, this is going to be a future. And I guess one touchstone for me is the Sun bikes that Oliver Bossard worked on. So Nico Vullios and Caroline Chasson were racing these, and Gracia and loads of others. And they were, well, just wildly cutting edge. They were really ahead of the sort of like the curve on lots and lots of things. And even now, you could maybe race one of those bikes. I mean, that would be a video in itself. Outside of the tapes of racing, K2 was already dabbling with future technology. So this is sort of late 90s. They worked with Nolan to develop it was a coil shock, but with electronic damping. Oh. I know, it had a cute little 9-volt battery. I never rode one.
Do you remember what era this was, roughly?
It is late 90s.
Okay.
A couple of years after that, so early 2000s, if Cannondale also had its ELO system, which used, again, electronic damping. It was really, really clever. It was going to have just a push-button switch. You can still get service instructions for them, but the sort of reviews and general themes I heard about them, it didn't last that long. It didn't live.
A bit glitchy.
A bit glitchy, yeah. I mean, electronics, it's always tricky. I guess in terms of innovation, we go then back to the racetrack and a sort of development of electronics as well. So Honda, who had a massive budget, and I guess also had a really big impact, but didn't really last that long, a bit like K2 and Off-Road Proflex back in the day. They launched a bike with Greg Minnaar and lots of races, and we heard from a very good source, Neil, that Greg had an electronic lockout. It was on a timer, so he pressed a button and it locked out for 30 seconds, and it came back on. So I guess you've got to be really sensible when you press that button. Cannondale had a second go at electronics. So this electronics thing is not new. Cannondale did another go at it. And yeah, it was called Simon. And again, it sort of fizzled a bit. Lapierre did a system with RockShox. And I think that was the first moment where RockShox started to, and the bigger players start to feed into this electronic system, where they realised that actually maybe there is something in this. Then Fox launched its live valve. Reviews were kind of okay on it.
Yeah.
Did look like a data capture setup. There was a lot of wires. It wasn't that refined. It looked fairly complicated.
I think that was part of the trouble with that one, though, wasn't it? Is that it did work really well, but much like Di2, you kind of needed ports and holes in the frame to get your wires in. So that kind of wasn't a bad idea, but maybe the execution was a little to be desired. Yeah,
I mean, that's really true. And it's only 2 years ago that Flight Attendant was first launched by SRAM, and that was this sort of multi-part group. We've had a kind of relaunch recently where it's not just a shock, it's not just a fork, but a whole sort of like system where it all works together, including a crank, so it's getting feedback all the time. And then, looping back to this weekend just past, we've now got Öhlins have got an electronic system. We've seen SR Suntour have got a system. Fox have got a newer system. So it just makes me think, like, is this now the future, this electronic control?
Well, I mean, you've just highlighted that it isn't the future, like, it's nothing new. We've seen it before, it's come and gone. Is this going to be another gimmick? I'll play devil's advocate a little bit here, because it is great that they're now going to wireless, and maybe that opens it up a little bit more, because obviously Fox Live Valve was a bit tricky in that.
Yeah.
Previously. So wireless is definitely helping, I think. But is it complicating things or uncomplicating things? Because obviously the whole point of this automatic suspension system is that it uses sensors to make real-time decisions to make these sort of microscopic changes on the tracks, and you don't have to set it up. It's just doing this constantly as you ride. But you do have the complexity of now having to charge up batteries all the time, which a lot of viewers are not on board with when it comes to that sort of a technological advance that might be a little bit too far. And also, let's not forget, you've held Sun and Boss in really high regard for bringing suspension on, and all that was shim stacks and taking stuff from the motor world and the motocross world and bringing it over to mountain bike suspension, having great setup and using lockouts and things like that. And actually, maybe is it that we've just reached peak suspension development, and all of this sort of automation and wireless tech is just the icing on the cake, but it's not actually the future. It's just a little something that we might see for the elites, and then we might see it come and go.
I mean, well, as we've seen it come and go before, so I think you're right to flag that it could be. I feel like it's a future. I'm putting my neck out here. It's bold, but I think it's because, really grudgingly, I think it's a future because.
But just to argue, counter-argue, is again, like, we've seen all the developments come from motorsport and motocross, but they're not running electronic. They're not running automated stuff. They're still on non-electronic
That's
stuff.
very
so
true.
Why do we need it?
On rally, they don't have it. It's been banned. So I think that's always a good thing, that it shows that it must be good.
Maybe.
Whether it's a cost saving or it is too good, I'm not sure in terms of why it's been banned, but it isn't allowed in rally cars. But yeah, I think for me, one of the reasons why we've talked about the complexity, and setting up suspension can be complicated. And I think that's what I really like about this system, is that it actually simplifies it. So, it sort of, the other reason of why is suspension really important, and I guess you've compared to power sports and motorsports, and that's a really, really good example, because with motorsport, well, if the suspension's a bit mushy, you're not going to get the best acceleration, you're not going to get the best traction, but you can just put your foot down a bit more. And with push bikes, we can put our foot down a bit more, but there's an advantage to playing around with lockouts or changing the compression tune. And I think what seems to be happening, especially at the downhill races, where there's quite a few tracks where there's big sections where there's either pedalling sections or bigger jumps, where you don't necessarily want the plusher suspension, you want something that you can get more energy out of. So there's two tracks, Fort William and Leogang, where the bikes with these suspension systems have done really well. So grudgingly, I don't want it to be the future, but it feels like it's actually less is more with it.
I'm on the fence with this one, and for years of reading your comments in our videos, I know that a lot of people don't like the faff of charging batteries, but I also know that one of our biggest questions is how to set up suspension. So this could alleviate that. So which outweighs which? So maybe let us know down in the comments below. Would you be happy to charge things up on a regular basis if it means getting rid of that headache of setting up your suspension correctly? Let us know down in the comments below. So Sauer Bikes are an independent frame builder out of Dresden in Germany, and I actually saw a prototype for one of the bikes that they've released this week, and that was back in the Bespoke show last year. They've released 2 frame sets now. So they've got the double chock, which is a 160 up front, 148mm rear travel. So it's a big bruiser, steel bike for all those Chundari trails. And you can actually dial it down if you want to a 140 up front and a 136 if you want the options of a do-it-all trail as well. But my favorite is what I saw the prototype of in Dresden Bespoke, which is the Cowboy Cookie. Great name. It's basically a 120 rear suspension with 130 up front. So it is cross-country, down-country, but this has been developed for ultra racer Quinda Verhel. I'm probably pronouncing that absolutely wrong, but she's responsible for doing things like 940 kilometer races over in Greece, and it looks stunning. It's got a steel front triangle and a aluminium CNC machined seat stay, which Acto 5 have actually made for them. I believe they made the rocker, but don't quote me on that as well. And also, I think Nikolai are responsible for the chainstay. So there's a good amalgamation of German tech here. They'll both be retailing from €3,499, and I will be heading to Bespoke again at the end of the month, so do keep an eye out for that show.
So, SRAM newness, very exciting. Two things. One is a little pod rocker, which sounds like something from Star Wars, the pod racers, but it's not. Effectively, it's like a little cover which fits over your fancy Axis T-type 2-button shifter to make it back into a rocker paddle shifter. They've been seen on Nino's bike at World Cups, and yeah, now it's out. It seems really good. I like it. And the other thing, briefly on SRAM, is they've got a new range extender. It's not for regular people, so it's not like a sports drink. It's actually a little battery, but it only weighs 1.5 kilos, and it's got 250 watt hours, so it's like 40% boost to riding, if you like your boosted riding, of course.
So Deity are celebrating their 20th anniversary this year. In this current climate, it's nice to see some 20-year-old industry types. And to mark that occasion, they're re-releasing a new version of the Supervillain pedal, which they are hailing as their concave revolution. So basically, they trademarked their shape, this sort of symmetrical shape that's not offset like most pedals are. It's just flat, it's symmetrical, and it has this 2.5 mil deep concave pattern to it on both sides. It's a large 113 mil by 105 mil platform, 14 pins on either side, and you're looking at $169.99 for that. And 7 colours in that.
7?
CNC machined and a matte nice finish as well.
It's a lot of colours. Keeping on with the cool stuff, Canyon Collective Rideable Streetwear Clothing Collection, which is a bit of a mouthful. Maybe that's why Collective doesn't have vowels. To be fair, though, I think this is really cool. It's got a real 90s vibe to it. There's a whole selection. You've got pants, aka trousers for UK people, T-shirts, hoodies, jackets, hats, multiple hats, actually, including one called the Dad Hat, which I think is quite cool. Chunky fleece as well. I like it. So there's a core collection and there's a limited edition, which is called the Concrete College Collection. And the limited edition collection is high-end materials throughout, and it's made in Europe. But I think the key thing is that whilst it's probably a bit too cool for a nerd like me to wear, it is actually designed to be rideable. So it's kind of like functional, fun streetwear, or streetwear. I'm not sure what the hand signal should be for streetwear, but you can ride in it. I think it's pretty cool.
It makes me think of the days when we used to have Howies and you used to have riding jeans and stuff. I wish they'd bring those back. I think they're
still going.
Over in Topeak, now there's the classic shuttle cage, which we've seen, you know, Nino Schurter used for many, many years and received podiums for. But now they've revamped the shuttle this year to make it more, well, sustainable, environmentally friendly. So 50% of that carbon cage is now made from recycled carbon, and it is 100% recyclable going forward as well. But it's still the same look, same weight, at 18 grams. And price is yet to be confirmed, but I believe it is in the same region as the 3K original.
Nice. Now, this is one where we've had a couple of comments about, which is what tool have I been using from on photo shoots, where I've been, you know, fiddling with bikes, for want of a better, more descriptive word. Yeah, I don't think it's actually new.
It is new, actually.
It is
Your
new.
one is new. So I always get comments on mine as well, which is the Ratchet Lite, because it has the chain breaker in it, which is pretty good.
Yeah.
Your one is like a nice little pattern on the case, and it's a bit more of an essentials. But they have got a bunch of new stuff out there.
Yeah, they have. Essentially, it's the Torque Rocket Mini EX.
That's what your one
is. It's a bit of a long title, but essentially it's a really cool ratchet multi-tool. You've got all the kind of essential bits that you'll need in there. But the thing I really like about it is that it's got a torque wrench built in, and it's really easy to use and really easy to adjust. So it's not one of the ones that just clicks, so you kind of, is it done? Do you go for another second click? You physically see it. So it's really nice.
Yeah, they've also brought out a new toolbar in aluminium, so you can upgrade your kit, or you can buy the new Ratchet Rocket Essentials, which already has the aluminium toolbar in there. And it's basically the same as mine, but it's about half the weight now. So it's only 107 grams for all of those little bits.
Very, very good. And finally, we talked about 2 big clothing brands. And we've had one, and the second one, this is officially cool. So we spied this really wild jacket on one of Chris Kyle's videos. He's a Red Bull athlete, so it's a Red Bull video. And we saw the jacket and we had to do a bit of research.
What is that?
It is
That's like a commuter cape.
Well, it's a high-vis orange, so I was like, this is good. Good for our US fans, because in hunting season you want to be seen.
Right.
Conversely, obviously, it's probably not that great to be wearing if you're sort of riding cheeky trails, because you're not going to go missing. If you're not down, which I wasn't, with the coolness of house fashions and these huge, like, fashion brands, the little red stripe that's on there is a Prada logo, and that's their symbol.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's not any jacket that he's wearing. It is a Prada jacket. So it's windproof, waterproof, breathable 2-layer fabric, oversized fit, hooded collar.
Very oversized fit. It looks like a parachute on him.
And
why do Prada hate sleeves? What's wrong with sleeves? What's the point of a raincoat that doesn't?
This is the short sleeve, extreme text, light shirt.
And how much is that?
Well, it's decorated with the iconic Prada Linea Rosa logo as well.
Of course. And how much
Do you need more? Oh, you want the price? Do you really want the price? I mean, this is such a good jacket.
Get to the point.
£1,840. You can get matching trousers too for £1,700 as well.
That's a bargain. Okay, quiz time. And last week I asked you, where does E13 get their name from? This was a tough one because John Pentecost set this company up with Dave Weigel. So John is now looking after Pivot, and Dave Weigel, you should know the name as he's like suspension guru. And the two of them came up with this idea. Now, the brand name came from Exit 13 on the I-95 highway because they were constantly going up and down this and commuting and coming off the exit to Boston, Exit 13. They liked the East Coast thing because there was a bit of an East Coast, West Coast thing going on in the downhill world at the time. But the word exit seemed a little bit negative because it might seem like you're exiting the bike and people use that word for crashing. So it became E13 and that was the end of that story.
There you go.
And there's all of the winners on the screen. Well done to you guys. And we have a new question today.
Yeah, we do. What companies, so it's 2 really, I guess, or more actually, what companies did Paul Turner go on to build after working with Keith at Kestrel on that wild nitro show bike? Okay, we've got top mod here. This is from Apex 1302, and I love this. Not only because I'm a super fan of Cannondales, especially like these Killer Vs or Super Vs. Cannondale Prophet had a similar front end. I've got one of those.
Well, this is
still.
starting to look like a rewind, not a top mod. What's
no, but it
going
is
on?
a top mod because he's got a sort of, should we say, vintage 26-inch hardtail. He's turned it into a gravel bike, which is awesome.
Oh, okay.
And it's top mod because he's got some really cool components on there, including the 13 or 12-speed or 11-speed in-grid rear mech, which is super cool. Yeah, what are your thoughts on that bike? I think the colourway is awesome.
The colourway is awesome. The matching helmet gets
yeah.
me. And yeah, in-grid, love it.
Yeah, it's great.
Love a CNC machined derailleur. Okay, last week we tried to virtually build a bike with as minimal tools as possible, or at least I did.
You did,
You
yeah.
very much disagree. You need
Yeah.
a whole pile.
You do.
The comments were, so the maximalist approach, Roop Dog just says, Owen wins. He is obviously a maximalist man.
I mean, my Roop Dog is non-gendered, so...
Oh, that's
yeah,
true.
but
Maximalist
winning on the
person.
tools. Creative Fish Designs Charlotte He is right, but the wrong approach.
Oh.
And she's correct.
Whoa.
Most people use a 5 and a 6. So I think that's a good one.
Oh, we both won there, I think.
We're both wrong, so we both won.
We're both wrong. Okay,
exactly.
Yeah. Jeff MTB in VA says, I'm slowly building my tool collection as I learned. As you should, well done. What is the answer for bike shops? My fave shop is over an hour away. Their servicing is top notch, but I can't get there very easily. So yeah, that is why we try and help with our videos and teach you how to service stuff. But yeah.
Chilbani, we'll go with that. Says, yeah, he's torn between your quest for the minimalist and mine for beautiful tools.
I do love, can we have minimal, beautiful tools then instead?
Yeah, but you'd need a maximum number of them, which is why he then goes on to say, his therapist thanks us already. So yeah, you're welcome.
JB2 Call says, maximum tools always. I even lust after tools that I don't really need yet, but might one day buy. Like a pad spreader. Oh, I love a pad spreader.
Always useful.
Buy one of those. You do need it, honestly.
Get them all. More tools. Thanks very much for all the comments. And yeah, do comment below. It's really useful. We read them all. So yeah, more is better on the comments. Just like tools.
And before we go, Owen, what are we looking forward to this week?
Really interesting video that covers, well, it's quite a simple change and it's often overlooked, but it can make a really big difference to how you ride.
And that is? Stem length.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I'm actually really looking forward to this because you're talking about balance and all sorts and how it changes reach, which is super important. So do check that out on Sunday. But for now, thank you very much for watching and we'll see you again next week.